And just like that, we're fully 6 months into the year, now walking the path of the 7th. Even if for some it wasn't just like that, July surely came. This 7th month of the year is also an indication of the summer days upon us, and today we give you activities for your summer itinerary, plus one of the means to possibly getting there and anywhere else across the breadth of Jamaica. I'm Theodore Henry, and your Jamaica Magazine journey begins right now.
What a way you're full of our roots and culture. That was in Jamaica 60. Jamaica 60? What a piece of news, Miss Matty. I feel like my heart going bust up.
Just in, the island of Jamaica is on the verge of celebrating its 60th year of independence.
I only we have to celebrate it. They say the people them come here, you know. But you see, when our people decide, say the other people them free paper, bono, them say if it's war, start it, whatever. We all collect medal, panta, medal. We give them
The celebrations are slated to begin on January 1st, 2022. Organized by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. We have more in this report.
I am on site and planning activities are ablaze. Persons are advised to download the Reggae Jamaica app to know what it pre. Activities for the Jamaica 60 celebration.
I forgot to download the app to get the updates then.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, July 6. Government has announced a $3.8 billion social intervention program targeting welfare support, water supply, and cleanup exercises. The figure is $2.7 billion more than the $1.1 billion that was previously allocated in the budget. A detailed breakdown of the allocations was presented by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke in Parliament on Tuesday. $550 million has been set aside for persons who are not on the Program of Advancement through Health and Education path. The funds will be distributed through the Ministry of Labour, the Constituency Development Fund, CDF, municipal corporations, poor relief and public assistance departments. 45,000 NIS pensioners who receive less than $15,000 per month will benefit from a pool of $450 million. Meanwhile, $100 million will go towards 10,000 social pensioners. One-off grants will be disbursed through the Ministry of Labour to assist 160,000 PATH students, while non-PATH vulnerable students will receive assistance through the CDF.
We want to do more than we have done in the past, in recognition of the environment that we're operating in.
Further to that, $750 million has been earmarked for the cleanup of parish capitals leading up to independence celebrations in August. The funds will be shared by the National Solid Waste Management Authority and members of Parliament through the CDF.
Amounts allocated via the Constituency Development Fund can be used for beautification, for bushing, drain cleaning, and for activities related to Jamaica 60.
And the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development will receive $150 million to truck water to areas experiencing challenges. The Finance Minister meanwhile disclosed that government's energy co-pay program has disbursed over $1 billion in May and June. The program seeks to offset electricity costs for Jamaica Public Service customers who consume less than 200 kilowatt hours during their bill cycle between April and July. The 20% contribution also includes a $3,000 payment for prepaid customers during the period. In Parliament Tuesday, Minister Clarke said almost 484,000 customers benefited in April, while just over 488,000 Jamaicans received the discount in May.
The government is listening to the people. And Mr. Speaker, the government is responding to the people.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says government is providing targeted support programs for needy Jamaicans while maintaining fiscal responsibility. Mr. Holness reasoned that the best way to withstand the current crisis related to rising food and oil prices is to keep the economy strong. The Prime Minister pointed to government's deliberate and structured economic plan, which has allowed the island to record 8.2% economic growth. He said a major part Part of that plan is the continued investment in infrastructure programs, which has been a major source of jobs for citizens. This, the Prime Minister said, is coupled with social programs such as the electricity subsidy, assistance to registered transport operators, and a new social pension program for the elderly.
Jamaicans can rest assured the government's infrastructure program continues, even in a time of crisis, because it is the continued investment in the infrastructure that is going to drive employment, that is going to give the incomes, that is going to allow the households to be able to respond to the crisis.
Prime Minister Holness was speaking following a recent tour of the Maypen to Williamsfield leg of Highway 2000. Some 600 Jamaicans are employed on the project. The roadway is 75% complete and is expected to be ready by April next year. In other news, a wheat substitution program is being developed by the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. Portfolio Minister Pernell Charles Jr., who made the announcement, said Cuba will be assisting Jamaica to create a gluten-free flour from breadfruit and cassava. The program, the minister revealed, is being created to stave off the current global wheat shortage while promoting healthier eating options for Jamaicans. Minister Charles Jr. says data revealed that between 2010 and 2017, obesity among adults and children has increased.
We note also the health challenges being faced by a significant percentage of our people, and with data indicating that 25% of Jamaicans are suffering from at least one chronic disease. And so we will be updating the food and nutrition security policy to boost the consumption of locally grown, nutritious foods.
The Agriculture Minister was speaking at Tuesday's handover ceremony for the Jamaica Food Systems Profile by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. The report is expected to guide the island's plans and policies to ensure Jamaicans have safe, nutritious, and adequate food supplies. Electronic traffic tickets will be issued to persons who break road rules such as speeding, disobeying traffic signals, or operating a vehicle that's unlicensed or uncertified. Transport Minister Audley Shaw made the announcement during Tuesday's sitting of Parliament as he tabled the regulations for the 2018 Road Traffic Act. Minister Shaw says the new electronic monitoring and surveillance regulations will allow for remote detection of offences using cameras and other electronic devices. The minister also says where traffic offences are detected remotely, the owner of the vehicle will receive the tickets.
Electronic detection devices will be approved by the authority to be installed on or near a road. Some of these devices are listed in the regulations, along with the types of offenses that may be detected, including speeding.
Minister Shaw says as the program is rolled out, the regulations will be adjusted to cover any additional devices or provisions that are necessary. The electronic ticketing program is one of 299 new regulations under the amended Road Traffic Act and regulations. Finally, the island's first and only nuclear medical science facility has been reopened. The center, which is based at the University Hospital of the West Indies, was closed in 2002. It has since been reopened through the collaborative efforts of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the Planning Institute of Jamaica, as well as the University of the West Indies. Speaking at the official opening ceremony, Prime Minister Andrew Holness said the center's re-establishment will play a vital role in the public health system. This as nuclear medicine enables early diagnosis and treatment of cancer and cardiac conditions, which account for half of all deaths recorded in Latin America and the Caribbean.
The facility that we are opening today is an important component of any modern health service. The service will now be available locally within the public health care system, and this means that patients will be able to get this up-to-date, modern service at a fraction of the cost when compared to that offered overseas. This facility will benefit our citizens and those in the wider Caribbean.
And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
If you're planning on being the driver for the journeys into your summer 2022 memories, then of course your driver's license must be in hand. Well, if you don't have yours as yet, then here's how you can get your hands on it.
So, you've acquired your provisional or learner's driver's license, and the next step is getting the real deal. Well, the process for getting each is a bit different, but nonetheless very achievable.
Now, the fundamental difference between the provisional and the driver's license now is that with the driver's license you can drive by yourself, but with the provisional, an instructor have to be there with you, must be there with you at all times. Somebody who have a driver's license must be with you. So once you acquire the driver's license now, you can drive by your own.
But before we go in to get this piece of document, we must have an idea of the type of license that we're applying for. Here in Jamaica, there are 3 categories available: a motorcycle license, a private license for motor cars only, and a general license, which is for any vehicle including motorcycles and public passenger vehicles. Now it's time to head to an Island Traffic Authority depot. But don't leave these important documents: a completed driver's license application form, signed by a justice of the peace or a notary public, the examination fee receipt, your provisional driver's license or learner's permit, and 3 passport-size photographs, also signed by a JP or notary public.
First step we need to do is that we must be successful in the road code test, and we must acquire the provisional driver's license. Now, when you would have gone to your instructor, right? Your instructor would then decide when you are ready to go and do the test. You should prepare yourself for 3 things: the written test, the yard test, and the road test. You need to know how to navigate that motor vehicle, right, safely without hitting down anyone. So you need to be in control of the vehicle, right? Know when to brake, know when to gas, know when to turn, etc. Ensure that you know your road code, right? Know your road signs, know your road markings, know the responsibility of drivers, know the responsibility of other road users. Understand what the road marking signs mean, the white line mean, and know what they mean, and obey them. So those things are very critical, right? So once you know these things, right, then you're ready to do the written test. The written test have to do with driving questions, driving issues.
It's mandatory for all applicants to complete this written test. Individuals are required to read a sentence, then complete the written test where the knowledge of vehicle mechanics will be tested for general license applicants.
And after you have passed the written test, then we take it to the yard test.
During the yard test, applicants' ability to start on a gradient or hill, parallel park, and reverse will be assessed.
So here, so now you learn hill start. Your instructor should teach you hill start, how to start on the hill, so you don't run back and create mayhem and crashing people behind you. So again, controlling the vehicle, very critical, right? So once you have done the hill start, you do the yard test, how you navigate the navigate on the road network. Just as how you would have to navigate out there in the real world. So we put you in that control. It's a control environment, right? So we carry you through that navigatory process. Once you have exercised that safely, right, that is good. Another component of it is that we need to see a reversing skills. We want to see that reversing skill being executed, and we want it to be done safely without creating any imbalances in the traffic environment. Once you have completed the yard test, the yard operations, yes, then we can take you out to the road. Because you'd have proven to us that we must take you out to the road, right? Now, once we have taken you out to the road now, we give you some instructions, and the instructions should be followed, right? And you are assessed again. Once you have passed all 3 components, then a certificate of competence will be issued with respect to you. Now that certificate of competence now would then be used as the instrument that would allow you to access the technology of a driver's license. Right? And the tax office now would be the ones that would issue you with that card, allowing you to drive for that period of time. If you have not executed the components properly, you will then be required to come back, right, to do the components that you have failed. Right? So those things would have been documented, what you pass, and whatever you fail, you will be required to come back and do it.
And there you have it, the Island Traffic Authority's simple steps to help you achieve your very own driver's license.
Let's say this summer you want to feel a little more than just sand and sea. You want to infuse the experience with elements of our historical and cultural context. If that's the case, then Port Royal should be up for consideration on your list. Here's why.
A sun-kissed land with the golden beams nuzzling your skin. Boundless beauty from its rural to urban streets, and above all, a land with a tropical climate. It's warm weather all year round in Jamaica, but it can move from the extreme cold up high to the really hot down low. This is Jamaica, and this is a hot summer in Jamaica. June 22, 2019 saw the extreme maximum temperature being broken in Kingston, 39.1 degrees Celsius. Well, many will probably tell you that it's one of the hottest parishes in the island, and Port Royal in the parish could provide you with an even hotter but rich summer experience. Let's say this summer you want to pursue a little more than just sand and sea, and want a taste of the island's rich culture demonstrated through history. Then Port Royal offers a unique experience of Jamaica's yesterdays.
300 years ago, when we knew Port Royal, the city began its history as an island not connected to Jamaica. For 33 years after 1655, Port Royal was known as the richest and most sinful or wickedest cities in the Western world, due to the piracy and extensive trading activities that took place here at that time. The typical temperature at Port Royal presently is very hot because it's in the summertime. However, despite the weather conditions, we have a lot of visitors coming here for swimming, fishing, and recreational activities.
On this historical summer walk, a distinctive structure cementing our history here at Port Royal that you'd be intrigued to learn about is this tilted building known famously as the Giddy House.
The structure, formerly known today as the Giddy House, was actually constructed in 1888 and called the Royal Artillery Store. Its specific purpose was to supply battery complexes with ammunition. That structure got its name, Giddy House, during the second earthquake happening January 14, 1907. That earthquake caused the structure to sink 10 feet into the sand and the top half tilted 15 degrees. So because of that sensation persons get when they enter, we call it the Giddy House.
So it's likely that you'll feel this strange giddy feeling on entering the building, but it's all a part of the unforgettable experience.
Apart from you finding the Giddy House structure here in Port Royal, you can also locate the Old Naval Hospital structure. The original structure was constructed in 1812. It got destroyed by a fire in 1815. The structure that we have here today was restored in 1818. That structure is the first prefabricated cast iron structure in the Western world. So it's built on floating rafts. Those structures are buried some 14 feet deep into the earth's surface, so that structure was built to actually withstand earthquakes and slightly sway or swivel with hurricanes.
And an old British defense settlement wouldn't be completed without a fort.
Another element you can find here inside the town of Port Royal is the fortification called Fort Charles. That fortification was constructed in 1656, built by the British to protect the city of Port Royal and to also prevent enemy ships from entering the harbour.
History still lives on through some of the most unique pieces stored in 2 museums here at Port Royal, even ones from beneath the waves.
The museums that we have here in Port Royal, 2 of them to be exact, those 2 museums contain old man-made exhibits called artifacts. All of them are authentic. Most of them are over 280 years old. They were retrieved from the sunken city of Port Royal. The sunken city is approximately 35 acres of land, which sank during the first earthquake happening June 7, 1692. So inside our museums, you can locate items such as utensils over 300 years old, weapons used by British soldiers in combat. We also found a watch in pieces, French made to be exact, which stopped at 1143. That's the approximate time period of the first earthquake, June 7, 1692.
A sea might have sunk piece of an island, but we all enjoy how that sea's cyclical rhythms set the pace for island life and sultry summer excitement.
Apart from to come to Port Royal to tour the fort and to learn about the town's fascinating history, due to the town's strategic location, it is known famously across the world for fishing activities, recreational activities, and meaningfully there are 2 quays off the coast of Port Royal, one of them most famously being called Lime Quay, the other Maiden Quay. You can get a 20-minute boat trip by taking a sea taxi or a small canoe from the fishing village.
Antiques 3 centuries ago labeled the city as sinful, but history's delicate hands in weaving Jamaica's culture has created a safe haven in Port Royal.
Presently, Port Royal is considered as one of the safest areas in Jamaica. It's known approximately for outside 75 years to have a 0.5% crime rate, with a population not exceeding 1,300 inhabitants, including myself.
So you see, summers in Jamaica can be wherever or however you choose.
Next up, the Breadbasket Parish, or St. Elizabeth to many. Our next historical voyage takes us onto the Black River Morass.
The Black River Morass is actually the largest wetland area in Jamaica. The upper morass was used for planting rice some years ago. That has ceased, and as a result, we have lost that area. But the lower morass is still here, and it provides not just a safari boat tour, but shrimping, fishing, and there's a lot of bird life still in the lower morass. It has been declared a wetland of international importance, a Ramsar site.
The Black River Morass is home to hundreds of crocodiles, vegetation, and other aquatic animals. Through guided tours offered along the river, you can glide upstream to learn more about the wetlands and all its inhabitants.
Welcome on board the Safari Diva and welcome to the Black River Safari. My name is Roger and I'll be your captain and also your tour guide. Our trip will take us approximately 4 kilometers upstream, during which I'll show you some birds, wetland vegetation, and some of our very friendly crocodiles. Presently, we're on the Black River, and this is Jamaica's longest navigable river. It is 44 miles long, about 70 kilometers. Well, surrounding us, we have over 21,000 acres of swamp, and this is the largest wetlands in the Caribbean. It is also home for over 65 different species of birds. 17 years ago, it was estimated there was a little bit over 100 crocodiles living within the area. And since then, their number have increased as they are on the endangered species list. They were once hunted for their skin to make a nice shoes or a good handbag. They are protected. No hunting of crocodiles in Jamaica. Well, they are part of our heritage. They're on our coat of arms with the crocodiles at the top, Indians at the side.
Unlike what we may believe in Jamaica, our crocodile here, Crocodilus acutus, is one of the most docile of the crocodilian species. The thing about it is that they help to cull the fish population, the animals, the fish that are diseased or the fish that are dead, they will eat them and so on. So that is well worth having those crocodiles here within our wetland areas.
These birds you are looking at, they are called egret, commonly known as galling. The reason for the birds to nest in this location, behind us, this is our local fish market. So once those small boat comes from sea, they'll have some food to get. In the river, we can catch big fish like tarpon. Those can get up to 200 pounds. And snook, which is a very good eating fish, can get up to 50 pounds. And the African perch, mullet, snapper, several different types. It's very good for fishing. So by the shallow edge of the river, it is also the main habitat for our freshwater shrimp. This little device I have here, this is called a shrimp trap. It is made from the bamboo plant. We'll use for bait roasted coconut, oranges, or even a piece of chicken. Now once the shrimp goes in, it's difficult for them to go out. The conical shape helps to keep them in. So we'll just hold it and twist it. It opens up so we can shake them out. It's actually very simple, but it is effective. The design came from West Africa over 200 years ago, and it is still used today. The vegetation or trees, they are called mangrove, which we have two types of mangroves tree, white and red. White mangrove, small leaves, and they are brighter in color. Red mangrove have much bigger leaves and also have those aerial root that goes into the water. It takes up all the minerals and nutrients for the tree. This section of the river we're entering, we call here Mangrove Avenue, as it forms a canopy similar to our Bamboo Avenue. These are all red mangrove trees, the ones that have the roots going into the water. In the early 1900s, the bark or skin of red mangrove was used for making a type of dye which we call tannin.
Did you know that the water in the Black River is actually clear? The river got its name due to the dark shade created by the presence of peat soil on the riverbed.
Peat soil, which is at the bed of the river, that is giving off the dark reflection. It also has its advantage and its disadvantage. The advantage, whenever time we have heavy rainfall or during hurricane, the soil, it acts as a sponge which absorbs the excess water. So we have no flooding activity within the area. However, when the water level gets too low, the peat soil, it gives off the methane gas, and with the help of sunlight it will ignite.
There are many different types of wetlands. In Jamaica, the most common wetlands are coastal mangroves, morasses, lakes, and ponds. For more information on the Black River Morass and all the other wetland areas in Jamaica, visit the National Environment and Planning Agency's website at www.nepa.gov.jm.
It has been a fulfilling 30 minutes with you as my company, and while we have to end today's show, tomorrow promises even more information you can use. If you want to see this and other episodes again, visit our website or our YouTube channel. You can also keep up with us on our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter pages. And just before we go, remember, to rest is not idleness. Take a minute to just pause, breathe, and unwind. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Theodore Henry. Take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.